It was one of those deceptively quiet afternoons in Charleston, the kind where the humid air hangs heavy over the historic streets, calm and still, giving no hint of the storm about to break. Eve was tidying her house on Fulton Street, humming a soft, familiar tune that carried memories of simpler times. The scent of magnolias drifted through the open windows, mingling with the faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee from the cafe downstairs. Her phone buzzed on the polished oak table, startling her. She smiled when she saw Mark's name flash across the screen, probably another one of those cheerful family video calls. Grateful for the break, she smoothed her hair, sank into the couch, and answered. The image took a moment to load, but when it did, Mark appeared, lounging beside a sparkling, magazine-perfect pool. His sunglasses hid his eyes, but the grin on his face seemed just a little too tight, too rehearsed. "Hi, my love," he said, his voice syrupy sweet. "Hi, sweetheart," Eve replied, not noticing at first that the rest of her family was already on the call. Her parents' warm, smiling faces filled tiny squares on the screen, her sister's eyes bright with expectation, as if they were all waiting for some grand announcement. Her heart began to race. Was it excitement or a nervous dread she couldn't yet name? Mark cleared his throat, his tone oddly practiced. "Today is special, Eve. I want to share a surprise with you, in front of everyone." "Oh, Mark, I don't know if I like surprises with an audience," she joked, though her voice quivered. He tilted his head, flashing a teasing, mysterious smile. "I promise you'll never forget this one. Go to the office. On the desk, there's an envelope I left just for you. Open it. Read it aloud." A cold knot formed in her stomach, but the cheerful faces of her family drowned out her unease. Slowly, she rose, keeping the camera focused on her face, and walked to her office. There it was, an elegant white envelope waiting. Her hands shook as she picked it up and returned to the living room. "Got it," she said, uncertainty thick in her voice. "Perfect, my love. Open it." The paper tore with a loud crack that seemed to echo in the sudden, heavy silence. Eve unfolded the letter, took a shaky breath, and began to read. "Dear Eve, through this letter, I formally inform you that I want a divorce." Her voice broke. The laughter and chatter from moments ago vanished, leaving a stunned hush. Shame flushed her cheeks, but she forced herself to continue, her words trembling but resolute. "Because I've finally found someone who truly makes me happy. You're free to return to your mediocre life without me." A cruel laugh burst from Mark. The camera shifted just enough to reveal Madison lowering herself onto his lap, arms draped around him, whispering into his ear with a victorious smirk. He stared straight into the camera. "At last, I'm free, Eve. Enjoy your life without me. Maybe you'll find comfort in your loneliness, or with some pathetic fool." Her family gasped, voices rising in disbelief, but Eve lifted her hand, silencing them. Her expression hardened. Her voice, calm and precise, carried a weight that seemed to chill the room. "Then I wish you well in your new life, Mark, because you'll never see me again." She ended the call without waiting for a reply. The screen went black, and the silence pressed down on her chest like an anchor. Calls and messages poured in from her parents and sisters, but Eve couldn't respond. The shame was too deep. She shut off her phone and let the dim evening shadows of her home swallow her whole. The days that followed were worse than she'd imagined. At the cafe, neighbors whispered behind their hands, abruptly falling silent when she walked in. Even the friendly owner avoided her gaze. It felt like the world had turned into a mirror, reflecting her humiliation in every glance. A week later, she stood in front of the bathroom mirror and barely recognized herself. Pale skin, tangled hair, hollow eyes staring back like a stranger. The realization hit like a slap. Mark had stripped her of everything, left her empty, exactly as he intended. She splashed cold water on her face, the icy sting igniting something deep inside. "Enough," she whispered, locking eyes with her reflection. "This isn't who you are. You're more than this." In that moment, a long-buried fire flickered to life. Her breathing steadied. Determination glimmered in her eyes, something she hadn't felt in years. She walked to her closet and pulled out her best outfit, the one reserved for special occasions. She dressed carefully, each movement deliberate. When she returned to the mirror, a different woman stared back, eyes burning with a quiet, fierce promise. "Today, you start a new story," she whispered. No one was there to hear it, but it didn't matter. This time she wasn't asking for permission, wasn't fearing judgment. Mark, and the humiliation he brought, was behind her. Morning sunlight spilled over Fulton Street, casting a warm glow on Eve's workshop. Inside, Eve was already arranging shelves with practiced care. Since her life had unraveled, the little studio had become her sanctuary. She had painted the pale blue walls herself. They seemed to breathe gentle life into the space. Above the door hung a simple, hand-painted sign, "Eve's Workshop, handmade with love." Her chest tightened as she looked around. She had poured so much of herself into this place. But it was hers. Completely hers. The bell above the door chimed. Straightening, she smoothed her hands and welcomed the flutter of nerves with a calm smile. "Good morning, welcome," she said warmly to a kind-looking retired Navy veteran with salt and pepper hair. "Good morning. Did you make all these yourself?" he asked, eyes scanning the handmade pieces with admiration. "Yes, everything, decorations, clothes, accessories." "Please, take your time," Eve replied, hiding the slight tremble in her hands behind the counter. After a quiet moment, he pointed to a delicate lilac scarf. "How much for this one?" Her heart raced. It was her first sale. $30, she said, keeping her voice steady. He smiled, setting the bill on the counter. "You're going to go far. You can see the love in every detail." Eve wrapped the scarf carefully, handing it over with a genuine smile. The bell chimed softly as he left, a small, sweet sound heralding a new beginning. Days passed, each one filled with quiet challenges and small victories. Eve arrived early, stayed late, often working under the soft glow of a lamp, fingers sore, eyes tired. One afternoon, the door opened again. A young man with an easy confidence stepped inside. Eve tucked a strand of dark brown hair behind her ear and smiled. "Good afternoon." "Good afternoon," he replied, his gaze wandering around the studio. "Everything here seems to have a story. Did you make all of this?" "Yes," she said, relaxing slightly. "It's my passion turned into work." "I'm Adam," he said, extending a hand, firm but gentle. "I'm looking for something special for my mother. Can you help me?" "Of course," Eve said. "I have unique pieces, or I can create something just for her. Do you have something in mind?" "My mom's a strong woman, like you seem to be," Adam said, studying her with quiet respect. "I trust your taste." "Surprise me." Eve's eyes lit up with a spark she hadn't felt in years. This was different. Genuine. The piece she made for Adam was a success. Over time, he became a regular, and a natural friendship blossomed. One quiet afternoon, while Eve was packing an order, Adam walked in with a teasing smile. "You never stop, do you?" Eve looked up, smiling shyly. "Rest isn't something I know much about these days." "Are you happy?" he asked suddenly, gaze serious. She paused. "Yes. Now I am. It's been a long time since I felt this way." He nodded slowly. "It shows. I don't know what you've been through, but I can tell it wasn't easy. You deserve the best, Eve." Her cheeks flushed. She looked away, but his words lingered long after he left. With every sale, every late night, Eve grew stronger, more confident, more certain that her life was hers to shape. While Eve rebuilt her life on Fulton Street, Mark walked a different path, a world paved with vanity and self-indulgence. Too blind to notice the woman he discarded rising from the ashes, he plunged deeper into a glittering, hollow life. He and Madison slipped easily into excess. Lavish parties under Charleston's swaying palmetto trees, weekend escapes to Hilton Head and Kiowa Island, shopping trips where Madison swept her hands over racks of designer clothes like a queen surveying her court. They moved among people who smiled too wide and spoke too sweetly, friends drawn only to the glow of their spending. Together, they became the picture-perfect image of a success, though Mark never noticed how empty the frame truly was. The air hung heavy and warm as Mark sped down the coastal highway outside Charleston. The Atlantic glimmered darkly to his right. The top was down, wind hitting his face, and his favorite playlist blasted through the speakers. He felt untouchable. Madison sat beside him in a silk dress, arms crossed, her expression a mix of boredom and annoyance as the scenery blurred past. "Mark, maybe slow down. You drank too much at the party," she said sharply. "Relax, Madison. I'm fine." "Or did you forget who you're with?" He shot back, his grin sharp, pressing the accelerator harder. "Nothing ever happens to me. I'm invincible." Madison rolled her eyes and muttered, "You always think that. Someday you'll see you're not." Her tone turned icy. "Enough already. I put up with Eve's lectures for years. I'm not doing it again." The air in the car grew heavy with unspoken resentment. Mark smirked at the road, but on a sharp coastal curve slick with sea mist, his grip faltered. The tires screeched. The world tilted. Glass shattered like rain. Metal screamed and folded in on itself. When Mark opened his eyes, flashing red and blue lights blurred above him. Pain ripped through his body, raw and disorienting. A paramedic sprinted toward him, kneeling at his side. "I can't feel my leg," Mark shouted, trying to sit up, his voice cracking with panic. "Please don't move, sir. You've been in a serious accident," the paramedic said firmly, bracing his shoulder. Madison stood a few feet away, barely scratched, her heels sinking into the soft shoulder of the road. Her face was pale, her purse clutched tightly, her eyes darting everywhere but at him. Days later, Mark woke in a silent hospital room, white walls humming under fluorescent lights. The antiseptic smell clung to the air. He shifted and felt nothing where his right leg should have been. The realization hit like a blow. No. No. "Oh God," he screamed, his voice echoing off the walls until it broke into sobs. Madison appeared in the doorway, her posture stiff, her eyes hollow. She didn't move closer. "Madison, you have to help me. Please, I can't stay like this," he begged, his hands trembling. She stayed where she was, her expression unreadable. "Mark, I can't do this. I warned you, but you didn't listen. I didn't stay with you for this." "What?" His voice cracked, disbelief spilling through it. "I'm sorry, but I won't take care of you." "I'm not going to spend my life next to a cripple," Madison said coldly, clutching her purse like a shield. Before leaving, she added flatly, "You should ask a relative to come help you." "Madison, don't leave me. You can't do this to me," he cried, desperate, his hands reaching for her. "You know you don't have anyone else but me," he shouted after her, but she didn't turn back. "I'm sorry, Mark. I hope you find someone who can live with that, because I can't," she said, closing the door behind her, forever. In the weeks that followed, Mark discovered just how empty his world had been. Friends vanished as quickly as the money, the parties, and the invitations. Calls went unanswered. Doors closed. Soon he was alone in a sterile apartment with peeling paint and unpaid bills, confined to a wheelchair, drowning in rage and self-pity. One rainy afternoon, after another round of unanswered calls to former friends, Mark hesitated before dialing Eve's number. "Hello," she answered, calm and steady. "Eve, it's me." "Mark." Silence stretched before she said coldly, "What do you want, Mark?" I'm not okay. Something terrible happened. I don't have anyone left." "You chose that path yourself," she replied, unflinching. "I know. I messed up, but I need help. Madison left me. I've lost everything," he admitted, humiliation heavy in his voice. "I'm sorry for what you're going through," Eve said evenly. "But I can't help you. I moved on, and so should you." Her rejection cut deeper than he expected. "Take care, Mark. Goodbye." The line went dead. He sat in silence, finally realizing he was reaping what he had sown: loneliness, scorn, and abandonment. Weeks later, he rolled his wheelchair toward a sleek, modern building downtown. Eve's studio thrived there now. Its tall glass windows gleamed, a quiet monument to her resilience. On the 5th floor, Eve waited at the doorway, elegant, confident, stronger than he had ever seen her. "Hello, Mark," she said evenly. "Come in." Sunlight streamed across her office, glinting off polished wood tables and displays of handmade creations. She sat with quiet authority, eyes locked on him. "I don't even know where to start," he stammered. "Why not begin with the truth?" she replied sharply. "I came because I've lost everything. Madison left. My friends disappeared. I have nothing. I need your help. She raised an eyebrow. My help? Remember the last time we stood face to face? Ashamed, he lowered his eyes. I know I was an idiot. I humiliated you. But look at me. I'm paying for it now. A short, humorless laugh escaped her. You think losing your leg punishes what you did to me? I've moved on. There's no room here for your guilt or self-pity. You mocked my pain and turned it into a spectacle. Now you want me to save you? I'm not that victim anymore. This, she gestured toward him. You built yourself. And yes, I'm sorry for you, but that pain is no longer mine. Tears filled his eyes. Eve stepped forward inches from him. Her voice was unwavering. The man I once loved is gone. And the woman you humiliated? She's gone too. I was reborn. I rebuilt my life, brick by brick, alone. I will not let you ruin it again. He understood at last what it meant to face the consequences of his choices. Eve walked to the door, gesturing toward the hallway with quiet finality. Could you ever forgive me? He whispered. Without turning, she said, I forgave you a long time ago. But it was for me, not for you. From you, I only want distance. Silence followed. Mark wheeled himself toward the exit, hollow, while Eve closed the door behind him. That door marked the end of a chapter, and her freedom from every shadow he had left behind. Morning sunlight streamed through the wide windows of Eve's studio. The space breathed peace, a quiet testament to her journey. She trailed her fingers along polished shelves, each handmade piece reflecting the life she had rebuilt. In the corner, Adam leaned against a column, holding 2 cups of coffee. His smile was easy, unhurried, the kind that comes from someone who knows the best things in life are simple. Eve, he said softly, handing her a cup. Made it how you like, strong, no sugar. She smiled lightly. Finally learned? Took me a few months, he joked, slipping an arm around her waist. She rested her head briefly on his shoulder, gazing out the tall window at the bustling Charleston streets below. Eve, have you thought about how much has changed? He asked quietly. She sipped her coffee. I've thought about it a lot, and I don't feel anger or pity anymore. Just peace. After a while, Eve turned back to her work. We need to review the new fabrics for the fall collection, she said, brushing her fingers over delicate swatches. Of course, Adam said, smiling proudly. He pulled out an envelope. But first, we celebrate. Here's the invitation for the grand opening of the new branch. You did it, Eve. Less than 2 years, and your name is everywhere. Eve took the card carefully, staring at her name embossed in gold on black paper. It wasn't just a symbol of success. It was proof she had risen from the ashes of betrayal. Later that evening, the grand opening unfolded like a dream. Eve moved gracefully through the hall, greeting guests, smiling confidently. On the terrace, the Charleston skyline glittered beneath the night sky, lights reflecting off the harbor like scattered diamonds. Jasmine floated on the breeze, mingling with the faint tang of salt from the coast. Adam handed her a glass of champagne. Is it everything you dreamed? He asked. Eve inhaled, letting the wind lift a strand of her hair. No, she said softly. It's better. Far away, in a dim apartment, Mark slumped in his wheelchair, staring at a dead TV screen. The silence pressed in around him, a bitter reminder of everything he had lost. Meanwhile, Eve drove along the Charleston highway with Adam, soft jazz playing on the radio. She watched the landscape slip past, oak-lined streets, glimpses of the harbor, the sunset glowing on the horizon. Each mile carried her further into a future she had built for herself. Not out of vengeance, not out of pride, but because she had discovered the strength to define her life. For the first time in years, Eve closed her eyes and smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile. Alive. Free. Past humiliation, betrayal, and heartbreak behind her. Life can collapse suddenly, leaving you stranded among closed doors and broken trust. But there comes a quiet moment when you look in the mirror and see, you are still here. Even wounded, even tired, carrying unseen scars. You are still you. And in that realization, everything begins again. Not because someone rescues you, but because you finally understand, the end you feared was never the end. It's the start of your true story. You just heard this one from Stories by Sue. If it resonated, don't forget to like and subscribe. What are your thoughts? Share them in the comments. I'd love to hear. Thanks for watching.